2, 3. It says we are live. Let's have a look. Can you see us in the chat? That's the question number 1. Because we don't see ourselves. Here we are, I think. Okay, let me quickly join you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gray's Westminster Friday live stream. And Gray's Westminster means time with Gray Levett himself, where we're going to talk about the history of Nikon Owner Magazine.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Friday Fandango with my esteemed colleague here, Konstantin. And Konstantin thought it might be a good idea to sort of look at the history of the publication that we created over 20 years ago, which some of you may be familiar with. It's called Nikon Owner Magazine. So
welcome,
away
everyone
we go.
In the chat. Thank you very much. Okay, we got John Hughes here, Magnus, Simon, Len, Rick, John, Richard, David, Michael, another David, Older High Angler, Pete Gazzola, Colin Brahma, Simon Hopkinson, who says audio and video is 5 out of 5. That's fantastic. You can hear us well. That's really good. Tadeusz is freezing somewhere. It says it's very cold where he is. Hopefully, we're not going to buffer so much. We got Dave Walker, Colin Murphy, Andy Hayter, Robert M, Nick Harrison, Robert Gayton, Vince Winnip. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And the first question, Greg, comes from the chat, and it's the question I wanted to ask as well. It comes from Simon Ma, who says, "Good morning, Kon from Toronto. Question for Gray. What was initial inspiration for creating the magazine, and how do you continuously keep the content fresh for readers and you? Have a fantastic show and coffee."
Well, thank you. That's a great question. Well, you know, when you run a camera shop, or in fact any sort of shop selling, say, high quality products, someone will come in and, let's say, for example, they buy a camera and a couple of lenses from you. When they walk out the door, you may never see them again. So how do you provide an ongoing relationship with them? And it was a number of years ago, Uri Zakai, who's my business partner, and Gillian Greenwood, who is the senior features editor of Nikon Owner, and we were having tea at this lovely hotel in Albemarle Street called Brown's. Mm-hmm. And Brown's is sort of like a country house hotel in the middle of the city. It's where Kipling wrote part of Jungle Book.
Okay.
Where the first telephone call was made. And it's been a home to a lot of people. But the idea came about of, why don't we start a magazine? Because then you've got a communication to your public. And it's a way of being informative and growing a community. And also, it would be a vehicle for photographers who might not otherwise get a chance to see their work in publication. And the other thing is, we wanted to do it on the highest quality paper, because sometimes when you pick up a magazine, and certain photographic magazines have a huge budget constraints, and the photograph that you originally took, or the photographer originally took, may not look as good as it looks when it's printed on fine quality paper, because it's being printed on a rather thin, and we wanted the best possible paper. So that was the inspiration, and it was a journey into the unknown, really.
Tell me about the first issue of the magazine.
Oh, right. Well, the important thing with a magazine is the front cover. The front cover is, it has to kind of fulfill, to me, the sort of one of the definitions of art, which is a communication sufficient to create an emotional impact. And we were incredibly fortunate that the social society photographer, I should say, Richard Young, who has been around for many decades, known by just about everybody in the field, came to me, and this was after the sort of tragic death of Diana, Princess of Wales. He said to me, "I've got a photograph of Princess Diana that everybody wants, and I just don't want to get involved in it. I want to get away from all the news." And he gave it to us as a gift. And such was its relevance, was that one of the Sunday newspapers devoted to almost half a page to our first ever issue. So we thought, well, we're off to a reasonable start here.
Absolutely.
For an unknown magazine by a camera shop based in a secondary retail location in London. And I think you've probably got it there, haven't you?
Yes, we put the image up. And if you have any question for Gray about Nikon Owner Magazine and its history, please put QQQ in front of the question, first of all, so we can kind of filter it out a little bit. But I also want to thank Vince Vinip, who says, had a lot of pleasure from Nikon Owner over the years. Tim Herring says, for my Nikon shop mentor, Neil Gaskin, Gray's Friday chat is wonderful connection to your followers. Happy Friday. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Jay Blue, who says, happy Friday to Kon and Gray. Enjoy the coffee. Does the editing of the magazine come easy to you, Gray?
Well, I was kind of thrown in the deep end because originally it was going to be Uri who was going to be the editor. And, those of you who don't know Uri...
That's why I'm laughing.
He said to me, I tell you what, why don't you just do the first one and I'll continue it from there onwards. And then I did. And my inspiration came really for what makes a great magazine. So, I looked at various magazines in different fields on the market and thought, well, what's the thing about them that appeals to me? Why would I buy it? And there were a number of reasons. So, the first issue was a shot in the dark, really, and of course, Uri never returned to the fold to take over the editorship. So, I've been helming it ever since. With, I must say, an extraordinary group of talented individuals that are part of the Nikon Owner team.
Incredible. I mean, I'm glad that we never came to actually edit on the magazine. It would be a very different magazine, I can tell you that.
Poor old Uri.
But guide me through just the creation of one issue. What goes into creation of just one particular issue? How long does it take? What does it involve?
Well, it's actually finding images and thinking, well, have we done anything like this before? What's the quality of the images? Is it sufficiently different? Because we get loads and loads of really fantastic stuff, but sometimes, you think, we've done this before, and being a quarterly publication, there's only so much we can put in it, and we don't like to, duplicate ourselves as it was. So it's finding the images and speaking to the photographer, inviting them to become part of it, and either they write it themselves, or we interview them, which is usually something I've done a number of them over the years, but Gillian Greenwood tends to do the major ones, and she's extremely good at it.
Yeah, and then you've got Simon Stafford as well as a technical
editor. We've got Simon Stafford, who does our technical reviews. He's sort of set a benchmark standard really for his work, exceptional. And I met him through him being a customer in the shop. We've got people like Tony Hurst, and Tony Hurst is a photographer I've known since the Ark, really. He's a master photographer, and his photographs of Nikon equipment, particularly vintage Nikon equipment, are breathtaking. There's no other word for it, really. He's able to create images. I can't tell you how many editors from other magazines have come up to me and say, how the hell does he get work like that?
That's true. He should really do workshops.
He should, yeah. But he's a kind of a rather shy, retiring gentleman, and we're very fortunate that he's in every issue. We also have people like Michael Putland.
That's right.
And Michael Putland sadly died, I think, about 4 years ago now, and he was became a preeminent photographer, music photographer. But in his early days, between 1969, I think it was, and 1973, he was based in the basement of this very building below the shop. And the shop, before it was Gray's of Westminster, was a hairdresser's for, I think, about 100 years. In fact, Sir Winston Churchill would get his hair cut here, apparently. And Michael worked downstairs, and we found out, we were introduced to him a number of years ago when he came into the shop after selling his photo agency, Retina. And I think you've got one of his covers there of the Stones, and
let's find that one. Here we go.
Yeah,
that's the one from him.
Yeah, that's one of Michael's works. And I mean, the people he had downstairs were people like Mark Bolan of T-Rex, Queen, and Alice Cooper, to legendary disc jockey John Peel, Andy Williams. If you couldn't, it was so diversified, his work. And then he landed a front cover in color with Mick Jagger. His career took off, and he moved to larger premises. But his widow, Sophie, kindly agreed to allow us to do a regular column of Michael's work, and it's called The Musical Box of Michael Putland. So he's terrific.
We also have some people you may know. Her name is Becky, and
Yes.
she writes articles for Nikon Owner Magazine as well.
Yeah,
my images occasionally find their way.
They do. Yeah,
into the magazine as well.
You just need to send them to us.
I have to write a letter to Gray personally, and then go to the post office. And,
and we also got Andrew Main Wilson.
Andrew Main Wilson as well.
And Andrew has been trying for many, many years to be the first photographer to have visited and photographed every one of the 200 countries on Earth. I think he's at number 180 at the moment.
That's a lot of countries.
And a number of years ago, he invited me to a lunch with, that he was doing a lunch interview with Bill Gates. And Bill Gates told him that he'd been to more countries than he had. And that Andrew had been to more countries than Bill Gates, I should say.
I thought Andrew would say challenge accepted. And
No, so he's another a terrific photographer and a great writer too, exceptional.
That's true. Let's go through the chat real quick and see what questions we have for you. So Christopher Clark is asking, do you still have an image of the first cover of your magazine? And we put it on the screen, but I guess, do you still have the original magazine, right?
I have a few copies in our archive, yes.
Fantastic. David Moscora question, we'll come back to that because it's in the list of my questions to ask. Ian White is very persistent. He asks me every time about the binders for the magazine. And I know I passed it to Gray. He knows about this, but what are your thoughts on this?
Well, we have been approached over the years to do a binder, when we've investigated how many we would have to buy in order to make it a realistic price and something that people would willingly invest in, whenever I've announced it, I've had zero response. And that's the only reason, really. Otherwise, I would have done it just for my own copies rather than having them just stuck on my library in this room.
Should do a compendium or something like this of all the magazine.
That would be big, wouldn't it?
It's quite thick, yeah. Like a coffee table size.
That's right, yeah.
Do you remember what camera was used by Richard Young to take that photograph of Princess Diane?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I'll try and find out, actually. I don't know whether Richard would remember because he's had so much equipment over the years.
That's true. That's true. He buys from us, so he generally comes in, brings everything in. This equipment, it's seen its days, I think, the best days. We genuinely take it from him and look after it. But when he uses equipment, that's a lot of actuations and rolls of film. Genuinely,
it certainly is. Yeah.
Vintage Vantex is asking, where are the most of your subscribers based?
Oh, well, in the UK, probably second to that would be, I think the US is growing. Certainly, we know that from these live streams that we do, a huge percentage of our viewing audience are USA based. But I would have to find out. It's not something that I've ever really kind of looked into. But it's you've piqued my interest now.
Thank you very much, Kirill. He says, Gray, I'm curious. Have you ever sold photo equipment to the royal family?
Yes.
GDPR. Can't name names.
Well, we've always sort of maintained that we do and have had a lot of high-profile people in the shop, and I've always wanted to make sure that they felt that they could come in and we wouldn't be using their names as a sort of a look at us sort of thing, that when they came in, it was a private purchase. And unless they said to us, do feel free to use my name, which, some of them have. Well, the wonderful David Suchet. Now, if we start off with that ordinary cover, just that one there, right? Now, David is one of the grand actors, stage and screen and television actors. And for over, I think, 25 years, he played Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's phenomenal creation of the Belgian detective. And his meticulous attention to detail and making sure that he absolutely adhered to the way Christie had created a character. He became a client many, many years ago, and in one of the early issues, we interviewed him, and he appeared on the front cover with, I think, an FM3A. Is that the one? Is that
looks like a FM3A? Yeah.
And that was a shot by Simon Stafford. And now, one of the things is that David was going to be going to Egypt to shoot Death on the Nile, which, along with probably Murder on the Orient Express, is those are two of the most well-known Agatha Christie stories that have made it onto the big screen, and the very, very clever whodunits. And David had been asked by one of the national newspapers to photograph behind the scenes of what it was like to be on the Nile, on the SS Karnak, they wanted him to shoot on digital, which he'd never done. So he rang up and said, "Could you give us some lessons?" So we went over to his house, and he was very, very grateful. And he said, "Well, how can I pay you?" And I said, "You don't have to pay us anything." And I said, "However, there's something I would love you to do if you are willing to do it with no pressure, and if Agatha Christie's estate doesn't object, which is when you're in your Poirot costume, I'd love you to be reading a copy of Nikon Owner with you on the front cover." And he said, "I'm not sure I can do it, but, I'll see what I can do." And then when he came back, he came in, he put some rolls of films and said, "They're a gift from me, help yourself." It created a huge effect, really. And, David is, one of the true gentlemen, really, of the world. When we left his house, I remember Simon Stafford saying to me, "It's people like that restores your faith in human nature."
Gray's Westminster supplier to the best detectives.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Did Mr. Colombo bought anything from us?
Mr. Colombo?
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't have passed our dress code, I don't think.
And he would say, "And one more thing."
And another thing.
While lighting his cigar.
I used to find him intensely you have to watch Colombo, but I used to find him intense. I was often on the side of the crook or the murderer, thinking, "Oh, how can you allow anybody to go around?" But he was a great actor.
The two detective shows I loved to watch as a kid was Poirot and Columbo.
Oh, you watched those, did you?
Oh, yeah, love them. Love them to bits. All right, well, back to the questions here. So Jay Blue says, how does Gray maintain the high quality paper and the print quality of Nikon Owner Magazine? Not only is the photography and articles superb, the magazine is a joy to hold in your hands.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Well, that's what we try and do. And it's difficult, to be frank with you, to maintain the quality because paper costs rise, postage costs are really a killer, and trying to make that work is a constant challenge for us. Which is one of the reasons why we also arranged for an electronic subscription, so you could read it online and flip over the pages and things like that, which has been very popular, which I can tell you more about towards the end of this broadcast. Speaking
of digital, Christopher Clark is asking, do we have digital issues of all issues of the magazines? Yeah. So from issue 1
to well, when you take out a subscription, you've got access to over 80 back issues.
Incredible. That's absolutely incredible. There was another question that I wanted to ask you. So there's a question about just how digital is going and everything like this. Do you see is the majority of subscribers are on print magazine or digital?
Well, I don't know exactly what the percentages are now, but the electronic subscriptions are growing, particularly with a younger audience.
The youngsters.
That's right, and also people who don't want you to spend money creating a kind of extra carbon footprint.
That's right. Absolutely. And David has a question. He's asking, do you only publish images taken with Nikon in the magazine, or other brands are welcome?
It is Nikon. The clue kind of is in the title. I mean, if you have, other makes and marks, then you'll usually find, for example, if you use Canon, I think there's a Canon users magazine, and Leica, of course, are probably well accommodated for as well. But no, it's purely Nikon. I mean, occasionally someone will do a large article. For example, John Archer Thompson, who's a regular correspondent, shoots on Nikon, but occasionally he'll have, like a GoPro, or he would have an Olympus compact, which we use, and we would include that. We're not terribly stuffy in that way.
Personal question. When the new issue comes out, my kind of first thing I'm looking forward to, the editor's letter.
Oh, right.
How do you come up with stuff like this? But more of a, obviously, you spend a lot of time on that editor's letter to set up this theme for the magazine. Where do those all inspirations come from? From your past, from the future?
Yeah, well, because I find that when I pick up a magazine, usually the editor's letter is a slightly wordier version of the contents page. On page 3, we've got Bill Sykes talking about such and such, and you could read that in the contents page. And so I usually kind of go for a theme, and often I'll go off at a tangent, and even when I'm typing a thing, well, how am I going to get it back to what we're talking about? But really, I'm just trying to do things that I think might be inspirational for people, where they'd think, maybe I should try that. For example, in the current issue, which is...
That one just came out.
Just came out. It should be arriving soon. Just under that laptop over there, I've got the rough proof of... Yeah, this is it. Now, this is a matte version here, and you'll be getting copies soon. It is available online to read, but my editor's letter there talked about persistence. One which was persistence of Grays of Westminster, because this year we're celebrating our 40th anniversary, and I gave as an example a friend of ours called Stephen J. Willis, and Stephen writes books. He's written musicals, and he's written scripts, and he's just slogged away for years and years and years with little or no response. But he, despite the naysayers, why don't you give up? He just persisted, and in the last 6 months, he's won 15 awards, including an award at Cannes Film Festival for his script, and that is absolutely what I wanted to underline. Whatever you want to do, don't let anybody tell you can't do it, because they must think you can. Otherwise, why would they go to so much trouble to say that you shouldn't or can't do it? And certainly that was my experience with Grays of Westminster, who people have said it would never work. That I try and use it as a vehicle to inspire people, really. I hope it does, really. And I've had the benefit of meeting some wonderful photographers over the years. Some of the big names, from people like Cornell Lucas, who was the great Hollywood photographer who shot everything on those 8x10 wooden cameras, and
nice.
He was a very grand gentleman, and Terence Donovan and Bailey, and the list goes on. The late Lord Snowden. He was a client, and very agreeable.
How do you choose the front covers?
Oh, does it go bang? Does it make you go?
Let's put some of those just on display.
Yeah.
So we have one from Joe McNally here.
Yeah.
How did this one come about?
Well, once a year, Joe McNally comes over to do workshops. He's technically one of the most, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so.
Up there.
I used to study on his books So the flash books, I've got it signed recently.
Oh, you got it
the
signed.
the one I actually studied on, so it wasn't the best condition, but I've read it from first page to the last page, and yeah, this man not just have of knowledge and wisdom, but he can just literally come up with any lighting situation, can tell you how to shoot it. It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. He's technically remarkable, and he's an artist. He's of such high caliber, and I look at his work, and it's almost an overwhelm of images, and you think, all of these work for a cover, and then I approach him and saying, "Can we do a cover?" And I think he's had more covers, more Nikon Owner covers than any other photographer. He's had at least 4, I would think. He's terrific.
Absolutely. What about Clint Eastwood one?
Oh, well, yes. No, that was...
Was it they shown them Nikon in the movies, or?
Yeah. Well, what it was Clint Eastwood made a film called The Bridges of Madison County, where he played a photographer and for National Geographic, who goes to this rather sleepy town called Madison County, in Madison County, and to photograph the wooden bridges, which are covered. And it was a story of him meeting this woman, portrayed in the film by Meryl Streep really well, and their 4 or 5 day affair, and the effect it had on both of them. And a friend of mine called Britta Bang had loaned me the book and said, "You really must read this, Gray." And I read it in a night, and I wanted to get some. Like a press pack, and I'd approached someone at one of the local Warner Brothers offices in London, and they were terribly standoffish and weren't obliging at all. And so I thought, oh gosh, what a shame. I mean, we're only promoting the movie. And what happened at the time, and this was I had a phone call from Stanley Kubrick's office, and we'd been dealing with Mr. Kubrick for a number of years. And we were chatting away. He said, "Oh, how are things with you?" I said, "Oh, I'm just having a tough time." And he said, "Oh, well, what?" And I said, "Well, I'm just telling him." He said, "Oh, let me talk to Stanley." And I said, "Oh, no, please don't. Please don't do that." And he said, No. And I said, "Look, I really don't want you to do anything. I should never have said anything." 10 or 15 minutes later, I had a phone call from the head of Warner Brothers Europe saying, "How can we help you?" Which is a bit like the Queen of England contacting you saying, "I understand you're having trouble buying one of my postage stamps from the Royal Mail." And so, he said, "Okay, what do you need?" And I said, "Well, done." Later that day, a courier turned up with a press pack, photographs, an invitation to go to the premiere with Clint Eastwood, and a first generation poster, which is framed outside. And, Clint Eastwood at one point comes out to talk to us before the movie starts. And as a result of that, the photographer on the Clint Eastwood film allowed us to have some behind-the-scenes shots. And and we got that cover. And I'd always been a big fan of Mr. Eastwood's, and since the days of the television western Rawhide, through to Dirty Harry and beyond. And of course, The Man with No Name.
I still yet to watch Dirty Harry. It's on my list.
Really? Well...
Am I there for a treat?
It's interesting. Yes, it's a good.
All right, let's see your comments and questions in the chat here. Let's have a look. So we've covered the digital side of things. Meezy saying, got FM3 from you in 2002. Never updated it until I got my D80. That's quite interesting. Len Oshman says, don't forget to give this stream like as well. So that would be greatly appreciated.
Please, if you could give us a like, it's very, very helpful for us with YouTube. It's very important. So if you enjoyed the show, and we would greatly appreciate you giving us the thumbs up, as it were.
Simon says, I love Joe McKnight's enthusiasm. He's an incredible chap to talk to.
Yeah.
I think when we did a podcast with him and Seth
Miranda, yeah.
It was the most incredible podcast we ever did, because I think Seth kind of opened up a different side of Joe McKnight, which we've never heard of. So that was a good laugh. And whatever didn't get into the final version of it, we had to cut out because it was just too funny. Honestly, it's nothing serious there, but it's just we had such a wonderful laugh there.
Well, he's very New York, Seth, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
a great man.
Now, David says he went to photograph those bridges, but he's also asking any film photographs that made the front covers recently. Do you get a lot of film submissions in the?
No, not really. No, I wish there were more, because we would obviously be looking for something that had, a Nikon content to it, and there aren't that many. Most of the ones where I think, I'm just trying to think of the last one. Was it people like? If they're sort of shooting like a Vietnam movie, then the photojournalist would probably have a Nikon F or Fs around his neck. There's the Eyes of Laura Mars, which was Faye Dunaway, and I think, if I remember rightly, she was shooting on Nikon. But no, I would always welcome it. Some. We've had a great one of Peter Sellers on the set of Dr. Strangelove, shooting with a Nikon F, and it's a great shot, but it
fantastic
wouldn't have
movie as well, yeah.
Oh yeah, but it wouldn't have made it it didn't work as a front cover.
I see. I can see in the chat when I said I haven't watched Dirty Harry yet. I can see it just lighted up. It's lots of recommendations.
Did it say, "Do you feel lucky, punk"?
Someone possibly did. I watched. I'm kind of go through the old movies.
Yeah.
And it's one thing when you are young, you kind of you don't pay attention to this, and then once you become older, you start to look into those movies. Like Lawrence of Arabia. I've just watched it recently. But there's a lot of good recommendations there. I definitely take them in mind. Now, Ian was sorry. Blow up many times. Yeah, several times, absolutely. It was an interesting movie because I watched it before I actually was into photography. I was 14. And it's not exactly the movie because it's quite slow. It's quite, slow pace.
Surreal.
Exactly. And I watched it because he was a fashion photographer, in London in the 60s.
Loosely based on David Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I watched it second time at a kind of older age, there's just a lot more things kind of. So that was quite interesting.
Well, it was the film that got me into doing photography.
You have the original poster somewhere, don't you?
Just outside, just outside. In fact, when Tom Cruise visited us, that stopped him. He said, "Why have you got that poster on there? Explain it." And I told him about the Nikon F. Yeah,
incredible. Back to the magazine, Ian White is asking, is there any, let's say, page dedicated to the subscribers, a gallery? Perhaps.
Yes, well, there's Nikon Owner Recommends, which is the inside front cover. Sometimes I do a thing called Editor's Choice, where I see a piece of work which I think is worthy of promoting. And often Nikon Owner Recommends is the first taste, and then we then work on, a longer interview, a long interview with that individual. for example, Gillian has been working on a series of women in photography, and this latest issue has got Xantha Fire in it. And Xantha is the photographer and wife of Graham Hancock, who has written some #1 bestsellers and has got his second series called Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix at the moment. And we've known Graham and Xantha for a long, long time. But it's a terrific interview with someone who's doing something very, very different from other female photographers, and great. They're really terrific.
Yeah, well, I can see the chat, and I think we should do one of the live streams, which is called Nikon in the Movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because there's so many recommendations popping up now, so I think save that for the next live stream.
Yeah. That is a great idea. Yeah.
So in terms of magazine, so it's quarterly magazine. So how long does it take you roughly to create one issue? Is it like full 3 months? How long is it for completion? I know you spent weeks on proofing it as well.
Well, sometimes an issue can go through 8 or 9 proofings. And Gillian always says it's a bit like peeling an onion. The more you take off and suddenly, because the most annoying thing is you proof it until you think, I just can't read this any more times. It gets printed, you pick it up, and the error hits you between the eyes. And I notice it in the grandest titles, really, of magazines where, something has been missed, and it's understandable in a way, but we do try and make sure the grammar is correct, and I know one particular person, whenever he wrote censor down, it changed it to senior, and
there's a full frame senior and there's a DX senior,
and when he was proofing his own stuff, he missed it because he knew what he was writing.
That's right. Yeah.
And but it took us to think, who are all these seniors?
Andy hates is saying proofing any publications can take a long time and then you miss something.
Well, yes, that's very true. But I would think it does take us 2 to 3 months to put together a magazine. It then goes to our designer, Jesse Wilson of Beyond Media, who's another remarkably talented individual. And he and I we will talk over covers and, see what works, what really works best. And I also want, there's no point in doing a cover or having someone in the magazine if it doesn't do them some good. And so that's a very important thing. Does it do someone a good? Bit like when you take a photograph of somebody, will it do them good? If it's not going to do them any good, we don't put it in.
Len Oshman says, just resubscribe to the digital version of the magazine. Thank you very much, Len. Did the editing of the magazine change in the last 20 years?
I don't think so. It's often coming up, well, what shall I write about in this issue? And, I'll ponder, I can't think of anything. And suddenly I'll be, out walking the street and I'll see something, like this current issue where I was working on it before Christmas, and I suddenly thought of Christmas presents, and then the saga of the mustard socks, and so all sorts of things come up when you're taking photographs, because this wasn't my first job of writing for a magazine. When I was in America, I wrote for 2 magazines on a regular basis. One was a science fiction, science fact magazine called Ad Astra, and I had a letter, a kind of Gray Levett's letter from America, and I think you're showing some of the covers there, and then out of the blue one day, the lovely Kate Bush rang me and asked me if I would write for her magazine, and I think you've got her in there.
So it's not your first rodeo?
Not my first rodeo, no, and it was a great honour. I'd known Kate for a number of years prior to her breakthrough and her fame, and of course it has now only grown after
running up
that hill in Stranger Things, which had over 1 billion downloads last year, and sold more records than it did originally. Which is very heartening for an artist. If you're good at something, it's timeless. And the great thing about photography and about music, it cuts through every single barrier of, race or religion or language or whatever. They are a lovely vehicle for communication and using aesthetics, really.
I have a picture of Gray editing Nikon Owner Magazine.
You do?
About to change. Yeah, it's the one where you're in the studio.
Oh, is that one? No, that's recording.
It's called Mastering the Editor's Newsletter, as I call it.
no, that's in a recording studio.
But did this experience, recording the music and in the studio, somehow transitions into?
I think so, because as you go through life and you go through whatever your particular path is, you experience things like working in a recording studio and things like that. Things happen that you can write about, or sometimes something will pop into my head that I haven't thought of for years, and I think, that might be something I could use in Nikon Owner Magazine as a proof. Oh, that's me in my apartment.
That's the actual photograph of Regis in the magazine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it was on an area. It was in an area called Los Feliz, and which was a really lovely area of Los Angeles. I enjoyed it mostly, very, very much indeed, and I was sort of reading Raymond Chandler at the time, which I thought was a great introduction to Los Angeles, as it was in the and Raymond Chandler created a character called Philip Marlowe, portrayed so memorably by Humphrey Bogart in a number of different films.
Is there any particular issue of the magazine are you the most proud of, or you find the most that it's one of the most important issues?
God, that's well, I don't know if we got it there, but we had one with the Queen on.
Don't have that one, unfortunately.
No, okay. And it was taken by Julian Calder, and it's if you go back through, where are we? Carry on.
Here we go. This is the one.
Yeah. I found it. Oh, well done.
Okay, let me see if I can quickly put it in now.
Yeah. Yeah. Julian Calder is another one of these photography masters, and he had unique access to Her Majesty the Queen. And this is one that he took on her estate, and there were only 3 people involved. There was the Queen, her driver. There was Julian, and two others. And he said the remarkable thing, she was in this rather extraordinary outfit. And he said, and of course in Scotland they have these midges, which can be very, very annoying, really, and ruin your day. And he said the remarkable thing, they didn't go anywhere near the Queen. So royal midges, this was I think on the Balmoral estate. But it's a terrific picture, and we were very grateful for Julian to allow us to use it, and he had to get permission from the palace as well. So we were quite blessed, really.
If I'm not mistaken, in this issue, there's also a photograph of behind the scenes showing how he basically lit the whole scene as well. So there's some lights involved in there, and it's all done outdoors. Yeah. So if you are subscribed to Nikon Owner Magazine, you can download that issue digitally and look it up as well. What I want to say is I want to thank Nick Ken as well. He just subscribed to a magazine as well. And there's a lot of comments here, and obviously lots of comments about Kate Bush, that she's a legend.
Yeah, bless her heart.
How was it for you to work with her?
Oh, well, she's, I met her, I think, when she was, 17. So sometime before the great fame with her first record, Wuthering Heights. And she was... She asked me if she was staying with me and my late wife, Mally, down in Dorset. She was staying with us for the weekend, and she said to me at one point, "Would it be okay if I played your piano?" And I said, "Sure, help yourself." And then she started to play, and then later on played me some tracks from a demo tape that she had done, and I was completely gobsmacked. One of the tracks was called "The Man with the Child in His Eyes," which I think she wrote when she was 14. I mean, this was the work of a very mature woman. And David Gilmour of Pink Floyd heard it, and he took it to EMI and played it, and they said, "We'll do it."
Wow.
And she's just the same girl that she was then. I don't think she was, the fame didn't really interest her too much. It was just being able to do the work. And I remember she picked me up from Sevenoaks Station, and she jumped out of the car, and I'd just flown over from America, and she gave me a big hug and a kiss and grabbed my suitcase and took the car, and there were two railway porters, and one of them was sweeping around, and they said, "Yeah, mate, that girl." "Yeah." And he said, "She doesn't half look like Kate Bush." And I said, "I guess she does really, doesn't she?" He said, "She could really be Kate Bush. It's amazing." He said, "Do you think she knows?"
Ted Ramsam is saying, "My late uncle taught Kate Bush music years ago at his house in Kent."
Wow. Wow, what a claim to fame. Fantastic.
So you finished on the current issue of the magazine that just came out and has been posted to subscribers all over the world. Do you already know the topic for the next one?
Well, we're pretty much all in the bag with everything, and I'm just trying to think what it is, because I'm actually now thinking of the issue that's going to come out next autumn.
Oh, I see. So it's quite a bit of planning.
Yeah, it's a bit like what they used to say about the Forth Road Bridge. But by the time you finish painting it, you have to start all over again.
I wish my life would be so well organized.
Yeah, well, me too, Con. Me too. In fact, I should kind of read out. We've got some specials for you, which Gillian and I think Katrin and Rafi, the Nikon Owner team, have put together. So I'm just going to read it, so if you'll excuse me looking down here. So for a short time only, if you subscribe to Nikon Owner Magazine, you can pay just £29 for an annual subscription. That's up until Monday the 24th of February. So you'll get the latest issue, electronic issue, but access to over 80 back issues of the magazine. So there's articles by people like Heather Angel, Jim Brandenburg, Joe McNally, Moose Peterson, Simon Stafford, Andrew Main Wilson and Tony Hurst and many others, and Becky Denese, Kon. Yeah, you know her. Mm-hmm. So in addition, we have a technical helpline. So there are loads of questions, technical questions and answers there. But if you can't find your question answered, you can type in and it will go to our technical editor, Simon Stafford, and then you'll get a detailed written response. And then your question and response will become part of the FAQs. That's available on the interactive website. We do a wide selection of webinars by people like Michael Elefriades and Adrian Cochrane and people like that, and you get substantial discounts. So, and also, if you're one of the first 10 people to join, your name will also be added to our mystery prize draw at the end of the month. So the annual subscription is normally £49. We're doing it for a special until Monday the 24th for £29. So you get the 60-page magazine quarterly, complimentary download of every single back issue, a subscriber's website, message board, events page, latest press releases, Simon Stafford's technical helpline, and special discounts on a variety of photographic workshops, webinars, and online events. So it's a real sort of cornucopia of goodies, which I hope you'll join us. And we'd also love to see your work. So if you've not been published and you would like to pass things through consideration, then do so.
So what do they have to do? They email you or?
Yes, just email editor@nikonownermagazine.com and, just write in and say, I'm interested in having my work looked at. Give us a link to your images and then we will be in touch.
Andy's asking, is there a discount code for that or is it just 29?
That I don't know.
Okay. I think you can use my code, which is Kon Live, and it's in description under this video. So that might do it.
Yeah. So
let's have a look. So we are buffering, Andy, but yeah, if you use Kon Live in the description under this video, that should work. Photography Adventure says, "Hello, the salesman. I just subscribed. Love Gray's channel."
So what? Sorry.
Hello, the salesman. I just subscribed. Love the Gray's channel.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Gray. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the coffee. And as we expand our community, you're our sort of lifeline to the world, really. And we'd just like to know how much we appreciate and value you. So have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, see you next week. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.